You are watching Tuner, the show that tunes you into progressive Ukrainian music, and today we are hosting the project Junket. As far as I know, Junket is a side effect of you being musicians. The band Atomiximao is the main occupation for both Mykola and Hirori. Mykola plays wind instruments. Hirori is a drummer and probably one of the founders of Atomiximao, the band that is going to represent Ukraine at the Sigit festival in Hungary and is generally engaged in a rather intense career. If I'm not mistaken, you have already created 2 albums, 3 albums. Initially, Atomiximao was supposed to be electronic. It's that something just went wrong. That's why it sounds like it does now. There were constant attempts to integrate electronic music, but something just didn't click. Not that we decided to create such a project by any means. It happened spontaneously at an art exhibition. The only reason we decided to continue creating and performing was that as soon as we started playing, somebody was already asking for Mykola's phone number to book us for the next exhibition the very next day at the same venue. As soon as we finished one concert, we were immediately offered to give more concerts. The same happened at the following exhibition. Does it get in the way of your project? And how well do you combine them? Is it difficult to switch your mode of thinking? Shpilly and I have enough time to miss Atomiximao. It's really great when we get together and rehearse for it. In fact, it goes both ways. At the same time, we discover something new for ourselves. We get used to rhythms and phrases in electronic music, which becomes a bonus somewhere down the road.
К фразам из электронной музыки, что потом всему выгодно можно использовать.
Many producers, as well as those who work with electronic music, live performance DJs, DJs on radio stations, sound engineers, music editors, and a significant part of the audience who listen to electronic music, all of this combined is something like a writer's cramp, or a creative stumbling block, if you will. What I mean is that electronic music today is desperately seeking new forms and cannot seem to find any. As a result, it tends to become redundant. Do you get this feeling from some fresh project? Or do you feel that what you are doing today is fresh for you and for your audience, meaning that you get no feedback that your music resembles this or that genre? Honestly, I don't know. I've noticed that the generation of music lovers is slowly changing, and that the younger generation seems to prefer going to nightclubs. So whatever is being released is what they listen to. You can hear something different being performed every weekend in Kiev nightclubs. I think there is always something playing any time of the day on weekdays. Most young people, up to about 25 years old, have the impression that only techno exists. We, on the other hand, play electronic music that we like, and that sounds good to us. We can't replicate it entirely, but there are prerequisites for funk and breakbeat. And we play the electronics that we like, but it does not always turn out the way we want it to sound. Its specificity is that it's not pre-made, and there is always one particular individual who conveys the idea through live sound. As I understand, you improvise from 2 sides. Your example can be contagious. It would be great if those who are watching today's broadcast and have not decided whether they should get into music or not will understand that it's time to give it a try, at least with the help of some software that gives them some hints of how they should do it, and at the same time gives them a lot of freedom. Yes, musical instruments were once something complicated, for many simply unaffordable, and sometimes occupied the space of a large cathedral or a sports gymnasium. But nowadays the devices for electronic music are so small that they fit into the palm of your hand. It's high-tech and cool. The recipe is simple: a sense of rhythm, taste for music, and imagination. And just go ahead. If you say that's all it takes, then I say go for it and just do it.
You are watching
Tuner, the show that tells you about progressive, contemporary Ukrainian music. And today's guest in our studio is the band Junket. I think there is quite a lot of jazz in the composition we've just heard. I think maybe even too much, if we expect that from the instrument at the bass level.
Находится в базе, но в сочетании с флейтой и саксофоном, в принципе, как раз...
But combined with the flute and a saxophone, it overbalances towards the genre, which is always a bit off to the side in electronic music. This is precisely what many electronic musicians try to avoid. Many jazz musicians get tired of that, and also say that they try and steer clear of that. By and large, the presence of jazz in music, floating and unstable, frightens many.
Какое-то такое плавающее, нестабильное, и многих, кстати, пугающее, потому что, наверное, в первую очередь музыканты боятся играть джаз.
First of all, musicians are afraid to play jazz because it's cosmic music in their understanding, which transcends to another level of technical performance.
А вот у меня обычное ощущение джаза...
Personally, I have a more emotional perception of jazz. All these speeds are achievable in rock, academic, and certainly electronic music.
И в рок-музыке, и в академической музыке, и наверняка и в электронной. Я помню людей, которые
I know people who can play the drums at insane speeds, but I don't feel jazz in that. Do you think you have this knack? Can you recognize this?
Мне кажется, что это вот какое-то другое состояние. Как вам кажется?
And if so, then why? And how does that transpire?
И если да, то за счет чего это происходит?
We try to catch jazz notes as often as possible, but it's still far from traditional jazz music.
Да, джаза столько разного, что new jazz.
There are also many jazz subgenres: new jazz, acid jazz, space jazz, fusion jazz, and old school jazz.
Электронную музыку с джаза в основном это, как показывает, это британцы.
I'm inspired by many bands that combine electronic music with jazz. The British mainly. For example, though it's more commercial, the Samotion Orchestra. I heard them live. I really like how proportionally they combine jazz with electronic music. Such projects truly give me inspiration to not perceive jazz the way the program 30 Minutes of Jazz conveys it to the listening audience. Improvisation. You still don't understand. You were probably too young back then. Many to this day still perceive jazz as some kind of incomprehensible form of music, while it is actually very much adjusted to the ears of the masses. Jazz has become classic. It is in everything now. New music bears a jazz imprint. It was just like a giant iceberg that couldn't float by without being noticed. I sometimes find that musicians who are very deeply into pop music prefer to hire jazzmen because that guarantees the quality of the played party. Sometimes a good musician doesn't have to shred at inhuman speeds.
Потому что это гарантирует, во-первых, качество сыгранной партии, во-вторых, иногда хорошему музыканту не обязательно...
They sometimes only have to play one or two notes, but in such a way that even if you are the most picky listener and the song does not interest you, the way it's played will still captivate you.
Если ты уж очень придирчивый слушатель, сноб, ты все равно поймешь, что, возможно, песня и не очень-то интересна.
Don't you think that one of these days you will be invited to partake in a simpler project? And if that will be the case, what do you think will happen then?
Вас тоже кто-нибудь позовет в проекты попроще. И что будет тогда?
We've had offers, but we turned them down.
Да, кстати, мы не согласились.
Не, ну это не то, что там повод для гордости, просто...
It's not so much a matter of pride. There indeed were many offers. I always say that I like unket because everyone can implement their ideas there. There is no defined framework. We try to produce what everyone likes, moreover, with the help of the remaining 5 members. Does Junket have a format? Or is this a stupid question?
Или тут совсем глупо задавать такой вопрос?
There have been no rehearsals. We had no time to think about the format. Speaking of pop musicians that hire jazzmen, that reminded me of a great interview with Dennis Dudko. It began with him saying, "We, jazzmen, have a joke. If you're incapable of anything, go play rock." A month later, Sviatoslav Vakochuk offered him to play in Okean Elzy. So he said, "How am I going to look at those people we were joking together with in the eye with the same conscience?" Nevertheless, he brought a lot of quality to the band. Western pop music is written by professional jazzmen. They are very talented guys. If we remember who made Michael Jackson who he was, it was Quincy Jones. Yes, because they have a sense of harmony, and different musicians have a different perception of harmony, depending on the genre of music. Accordingly, new sequences can be made even out of 3 or 4 chords. And of course, new progressions can always be made to diversify the melody. We considered involving a live instrument. We tried the bass guitar, but it tends to overshadow everything else. It sounds more or less fine with one instrument, but when there are 2 instruments, I think the 2 of you are quite enough for your group for the time being, and I would like to be convinced of that once more. What if, for example, vocals, orchestra, or maybe something else you suggest will be added to the saxophone and trumpet sample set that you, Hirori, use so masterfully? Have you tried something like that, at least as pre-recorded parts, as experiments? Or are you not at such a level yet?
Что-то такое, даже хотя бы на уровне фонограммных таких вставок, экспериментов. Или до этого пока еще не дошло?
We've tried vocals. Yes, there was an experiment. We tried that during a sound check. There is a guy, Dmitro Sazonov. He has a vocal processor. I think he can control it even better than I can on the turntable. So we tried it in different genres. It merged so well that we were amazed. That was the first time we wanted to record a full track instead of a set. Prior to that, we realized that it would be difficult to record an album with Mykola, and that it would be more of a live set. But we realized at once that the track with vocals sounded like a complete independent track from the beginning to the end. We're going to perform in Lviv, and we want to try it out with some female vocals. So basically, Junket is slowly turning into a conscious project? No, it's rather Mykola, myself, and a fit. Most probably a vocal fit. I can't really imagine using some other instrument. No other instrument is suitable. Maybe only new sets. I had a thought at some point that even if you keep using the same software, but add another turntable and try to combine it with them, plus a lot of effects can be used in real time. So this project has a boundless future and numerous opportunities.
Конечно, большое количество эффектов, которые можно использовать в реальном времени, то мне кажется, что у этого проекта довольно неограниченное
I repeat that this reminds me of the situation with an instrument that has just been invented. The person that invents the instrument does not know all of its capabilities, like those who begin playing it. The more you do something, the more you learn about what you are trying to do.
Как и те, кто начинают на нем играть. Чем больше ты чем-то занимаешься, тем больше ты узнаешь о том, что у тебя под руками.
Are you inspired by those words? I'm in the process. I understand that. The very fact that I realize and admit that I know only maybe 15% of the capabilities of this software is a good sign. I get the impression that you already see this software while having breakfast. Or are you not that absorbed by it? I know people who go around their apartments with a tiny laptop or a synthesizer and are constantly trying to come up with something new. No, I'm not at that stage yet, but I think... But is that a good thing? I think sometimes you need to put up a stop sign in front of yourself and not touch anything for 3, perhaps 4 days. When I look at what people around me are doing, I sometimes get impressions that musicians who are very immersed in the process have no time to look around and see what surrounds them. Is it the same for you, or is it the opposite case, when you know exactly what's going on around you and are constantly exploring music?
Локаторы отстроены. Вы смотрите, что происходит сейчас, или там исследуете музыку, например.
We do a lot of things. We listen to all kinds of music. So you find the time to listen to music after all. I'm not joking. There are musicians and producers who have to listen to a lot of music, and they don't hesitate to openly say in interviews that their music is the silence or ambience in their car, or while they are in the comfort of their own home.
Или фончик, говорят они.
I understand them. That often happens after concerts. When you start working with music at 9 in the morning and finish at 12 at night every day, you don't always have any desire to listen to music at all. Mykola, do you work long with music every day? If so, why? And what exactly are you engaged in? I also work at the studio. In what faculty? I work as a composer and a sound engineer. I write electronic music. Do you also play with any other band on the saxophone or flute? Or is your main work enough for you?
этого тебе хватает?
I do. I also play clarinet. I think that the fact that you've agreed to perform here today is a great honor for us in the studio and for our listeners. No, don't say that. It's not a burden. I practice around the clock. I've been doing that all my life. I've always aspired to that. Prior to working at the studio, I did the same thing at home. I woke up and sat down at the computer and started my creative work, but I still listen to music despite that. Of course, I don't listen just to analyze and get some new ideas. I also listen for the sake of pure pleasure.
Хорошо.
Do you manage to listen to music for pleasure vis-a-vis? Do you attend any particular live concerts? In that case, how would you assess the activity of internal music life in Kiev and Ukraine overall?
Мне нравится, что за последние там...
I like the fact that many projects in different genres of music have appeared over the last 2 to 3 years. I like when people are not afraid to experiment. For example, 3 people get together and say, "What do we play? We need a hit song. We need costumes. I have some connections. I'll make some calls." I think that such logic is still there. I'm not saying that it's bad. Even the people I admired have it. They all go against the rules. They already discuss costumes, while Mykola and I are still deciding what we're going to play and what kind of music it's going to be. I was in charge of the beat. Mykola soloed to it. I noticed that it turned out pretty well. I saw him dance and I danced myself. That was the most important feeling. At the exhibition, people approached us to say that they were not paying as much attention to our paintings as they were to the music that accompanied the exhibit. Basically, it always works. You sit down with the aim to write something, and eventually something comes out of it. Do you think that the impulse coming from you now, which drives this whole project, is contagious?
Он как раз и заразителен. Мне кажется, что те музыканты, те продюсеры, те...
I think the musicians, producers and the media that say, the public is not ready, give us some time, we are a young country, or start talking about some inherent cultural defectiveness, are gravely mistaken. Because indulging the audience, and especially disrespecting it, is detrimental in any philosophical school.
В любой философской школе совершенно губительный путь. Это
This degradation has become quite obvious. This stream of young music that young culture has ended up in may not be very large, but it is very appreciative. That unification attracts those unsure about their position. Also, people who like being together develop each other in a creative way.
Колебательном положении, а во-вторых, мне кажется, что людям, которым интересно вместе,
Does that relate to you? Do you feel that feedback? It's a rhetorical question as far as I understand, especially considering the fact that Junket, which appeared out of basically nowhere, already today has a decent concert tour schedule, just like that. Something along the lines of, we were asked where we would perform the next time.
Из серии на этой выставке у нас спросили, на какой мы будем играть в следующий раз.
I already get questions if I have already checked all those concerts. No, I haven't contacted anyone. I mean, really, we've just recently wrote a few words about the project. I think that despite all the producer advice on success in show business and music, and all the project algorithms that must have tremendous success, you are now experiencing a special moment. And it is that we have the opportunity to be the witness of such a flourishing project.
Здорово, что мы можем стать его свидетелями.
You have been watching the show Tuner on UATV. Today's episode was about the project Junket. See you next time.